Broadcasting live from New York, you are watching The Fix. It's about people, problems, and perspectives. I am Ohimai, your anchor on the show. Let's begin.
Good evening and thanks for joining me tonight. I am Ohimai, and you are watching The Fix, broadcasting live from New York. On the show tonight, we will be taking a look at matters arising from NSAS, the Igbo massacre which made headlines this week, renewed attempts by Nigerian authorities to censor the social media, and a host of other issues. But first, let's put the issues in context. In 2010, a report by the British Council titled The Next Generation Report identified Nigeria's youth demography as a huge asset that the country must harness for any meaningful development to happen in the 21st century. The 54-page report stated that the choice between success and failure rests on Nigeria's ability to harness the power of its single greatest asset, the youth. By 2030, quote, youth, not oil, will be the country's most valuable resource in the 21st century, the report said. But in that same report, the British Council warned that Nigeria will not collect this demographic dividend automatically. The Nigerian government must put in place policies to capitalize on the huge potential provided by the Nigerian youth. If this does not happen, the report said, the future of Nigeria could be much bleaker even than the present. Going further, it added, the energy of the next generation gives Nigeria's leaders a choice. If they view young people's enthusiasm as an asset, they will find an important ally in the struggle to take their country forward. But if they regard it as something to fear, they will find themselves in a struggle against a generation that is increasingly determined to make its voices heard. This was the British Council Next Generation Nigeria Report of 2010. 10 years after this report was published, Nigerian youths, the country's greatest asset, are under attack from a government that is supposed to protect them. It is an irony that makes one wonder if the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, has even read this report. Perhaps he has, but does not take the recommendations seriously. Or maybe it needs to be condensed into a cartoon. On Monday, Sahara reporters reported about the killing of Pelumi Onifade, a 20-year-old Lagos-based journalist. Onifade, a student of Tai Solarin University of Education, TASUED in Ogun State. He was an intern with Boa TV and online television because of the ongoing strike by university lecturers. According to reports, Onifade was assigned to cover an attempted looting of COVID-19 palliatives by hungry Nigerians at a government facility in Agege in Lagos, which is Nigeria's commercial capital. Onifade had a Boa TV jacket on. He was kitted in his official kits as a journalist, and he was conducting an interview with residents of the community to know what was going on. That was when he was hit by a bullet fired by policemen who were sent to disperse the crowd. His colleague, who was with him, identified him as a journalist, but the policemen refused to listen and even cocked their guns at him. Then they took Pelumi along with others who were wounded away in their vehicles. Arrested alive, Pelumi is now dead. All of this is happening amid the backdrop of the NSAS protests, which rocked Nigeria 2 weeks ago. As Nigerians continue to demand accountability for the October 20 killing of NSAS protesters, the Defense Intelligence Agency of the Nigerian Army has created a no-fly list containing names of some persons who took active parts in the recent NSAS protests across the country. This is according to online newspaper Sahara reporters. And for some of our viewers who might not understand what this means, a no-fly list is a register of people banned from boarding commercial aircrafts for travel within, into, or out of a country. But Nigeria's Interior Ministry on Tuesday denied this report. They said it's fake news, and they've actually threatened to sue the journalists who broke this news. And just breaking moments ago, People's Gazette, an online newspaper, has reported that the Central Bank of Nigeria obtained a federal court order to freeze 20 bank accounts linked to supporters of the NSAS campaign last month. This is according to court documents obtained by the newspaper. To discuss these issues with me tonight is a former chairman of Nigeria's National Human Rights Commission and currently senior team manager for the Africa Program of Open Society Justice Initiative, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks a lot for having me, Ohimai. How are you doing?
Very well. I trust you are doing great too.
We've survived the season so far, and hopefully we'll try to continue surviving. Thank you.
Great. I have just cited the case of Pelumi Onifade, the 20-year-old Nigerian journalist who was reportedly killed by the Nigerian police. This is what his elder brother tweeted on Tuesday, quote, "Pelumi was my kid, bro. He was so harmless. The police shattered his dreams of graduating with a first class. They've thrown the family into sorrow. Now they are refusing to even release his corpse. How heartless can these people go? Justice for Pelumi," unquote. Pelumi is just one case out of so many others that we've seen in Nigeria over the years. Professor, my first question to you tonight is, why is Nigeria killing its young people?
Oh my God, that sounds like an easy question, straight enough question, but I wish I could answer it for you in the time that we've got. It's sad, it's tragic, and yet it's happened across generations. And, you know, in 1981, when he was killed in September 1981, Dele Udo, he was killed by the police in Surulere. He was 24. Ijomu Debua, when she was killed, was just about the same age as Pelumi. Ijomu Debua was also killed by the police in Enugu in October, on the 1st of October, 1981. She was 20. She was just about to enter her final year reading surveying at the University of Nigeria, Enugu. That's an Enugu campus of the University of Nigeria. And so you can tot up the numbers. And I've represented quite a few people who have been involved, who have been at the wrong end of police abuse and extrajudicial executions in Nigeria. And there's been a consistent pattern. Part of it is class, part of it is impunity, part of it is unaccountability and irresponsibility of both uniform and power in Nigeria. But you would like to think that, look, I'm telling a story that goes back to at least 40 years, and you'd like to think that over that period, through military rule, civilian government that now has lasted nearly 21 years, about 21 years, we would have learned some lessons in how to regard youths as assets rather than liabilities, because that, I think, is at the heart of the matter. Just to summarize, the fact that the Nigerian ruling elite does not see its young people as assets, but rather as liabilities, as people who are asking awkward questions that the ruling elite do not want to answer, do not want to confront, and do not want to be asked. And the easiest way to do that is to shut them up. And how do you shut them up? You shoot them.
This is really tragic, and to underscore the importance of the journalistic work that Pelumi did, he was the one who actually filmed the video of a Lagos politician identified as General Abiodun Bolarinwa, who was seen shooting at a crowd of protesters at Abulegba exactly in Lagos mainland. He was booed by protesters, and at least 3 protesters were reportedly shot by him. This is according to a report by Vice News. Let's take a look at that video very quickly. And this video contains images that some of our viewers might find disturbing, and viewer discretion is advised. Belumi, before his life was snuffed out by the Nigerian police, he filmed that incident, and we probably would not have known that happened or how it happened if not for the work that he did. And now he's gone. He's just been killed like that by the Nigerian police. And when the police go to the scene of maybe a crime and they try to disperse people and they shoot sporadically into the air and people get wounded, shouldn't the logical thing even be to get ambulances to even take the wounded away to the hospital first, instead of just dragging them into the police vans, taking them to the police station where they eventually just die like that unattended to? And that was clearly the case of what happened here with Belumi. It's really tragic. And going from there very quickly, over the past 5 years, we have seen a total disregard for the rule of law under the Muhammadu Buhari presidency. In 2015, the Nigerian army massacred Shiites in Zaria in Kaduna State, killing 348 Nigerian citizens. Their bodies were then dumped in mass graves. Since August 2015, Nigerian security forces have killed at least 150 members and supporters of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, IPOB, according to an investigation by Amnesty International. As we speak, nobody has been held accountable for these killings. In between all of these, there have been a series of other extrajudicial killings. Why was the Lekki Tollgate massacre of October 20 different? What do you think was different about that incident, such that it generated so much outrage?
Again, let me back up a bit to the point you make about protocols or lack of them for handling incidents of or injured at sites of police intervention, of police shootings, or law enforcement activity in Nigeria, because that's really at the heart of all of this. And the fact is, I don't know how many times you've been to a police detention center, either, or indeed to a SARS detention center, either as a detainee or as an advocate or interlocutor. Because what will strike you if you spend more than a few minutes inside a detention cell or a cell of the police or the SARS is the number of broken bodies and injured people that you see there. Pretty much everybody would have an injury of sorts. I mean, people like me who have been lucky to be able to go into these cells and come out without injuries. Largely probably because they think, okay, this one is a lawyer, or this one is noisy, or that kind of thing. And so you go in with, we are lucky sometimes to be able to go in there without those kinds of injuries, other than maybe an odd slap or two, right? But most of the people you'd find in these cells would have gunshot injuries or torture injuries, or both. And several of them now and again will be taken out and will not come back. That is standard practice with police cells. And for some reason, a lot of our people have come to accept this as the only way policing is done. Our police assets, our police officials also accept this as the only way policing is done. And these days, and for a while now, for over 2 decades actually, it used to be before that if you were posted to head up a police training institution in Nigeria, you were considered an elite officer suitable to go up the ranks up to possibly Inspector General of Police. Indeed,
Right.
within the army, within the SSS, that largely remains the case, you know. But in the police, if you're posted to a police training institution to be in charge of training skills or doctrine or any of these, it is seen as a punishment posting. And people will be asking you why or how you infracted against the Inspector General of Police. Our police training institutions have been destroyed. And therefore, we no longer it's not longer able to transfer skills or transmit skills to those who come into the police force. And this is part of the crisis that we've got, that in the absence of skills, people are using routine torture and brutality as the way to go. And that is part of the impunity of the uniform that you see. You know, segueing therefore to your question about the Shiites and Lekki massacre. The fact of the matter is that with the Shiites, you know, this is the story of Reverend Niemola, really. The Shiites were not us, they were them. They were up there in Zaria. You know, they wear jalabia and they wear, you know, they wear the scarves of different sorts, or hoods of different sorts, right? And so we did not identify with them because we did not see their humanity. We saw their sect, we saw their religion, we saw their appearances, and we saw north and south. And, you know, Zaria, who knows where Zaria is? Most Nigerians from the south would never go to Zaria and would never have an image of the humanity of the people in Zaria. And so from there, it happened to IPOB. But who knows IPOB? You know, IPOB is seen as Nnamdi Kanu or secession. We did not see the humanity of the people wasted. We saw IPOB. They are not people whom we can identify with in different parts of Nigeria. And by the way, these are not the only people who have suffered these kinds of things. You can go back to the Umwechem massacre in November 1990. You can go back to the Odi massacre in 1999. You can go back to the Zakibia massacre in 2001. Exactly. You can even go further back to the Ugep massacre in 1975. And, you know, I can keep counting till the Tiv massacres in 1961 and 62. All right? Now, that is the history of the country, sorting out its awkward situations by shedding human blood indiscriminately. So as these things keep happening, we keep dissociating ourselves because we don't identify on narrow basis with the people who are at the wrong end of the shooting. Lagos changed all of that because Lagos has a concentration of everything, Nigeria's diversities. So in Zaria, most of the people who, you know, we could not identify Yoruba people and Igbo people and Efik people and Ibibio people or Beroms who are in the Islamic movement of Nigeria. In IPOB, we could not identify Yoruba people and Hausa people and Fulani people and Berom people and Efik people. They were isolated. In Lagos, we can all identify with everything. There are people from every part of Nigeria in that community that was assaulted and shot at in Lagos. Many of us know the location of the toll gate in Lagos. Lagos has a massification of media attention. And there was, all of this happened live on social media. There was no way we could not all relate to it. And Lagos also has a vast diaspora, by the way. And so it was not possible where, in a sense, both the Zaria massacre and the IPOB massacres have been out-of-body experiences. Everyone can identify on a personal basis to what's happened in Lagos, and that's part of it. Apart from political reasons, the fact that Lagos is also the place where CPC met ACN to form APC, and Lagos is also the place where Nigeria's biggest investments happen. So when you add up all of that, the personal, the psychological, the social, the political, the economic, the investment, the media factors, and the information factors, the fact is that the Lekki massacre has assumed a particular resonance for everyone in Nigeria that was different from every other.
So to pivot from that, the United Nations Human Rights Office in a statement on Tuesday asked the Nigerian government to investigate the Lekki massacre. This is coming amid the reluctance of the government to admit that there were any casualties. Will there be accountability for the Lekki tollgate killings, considering what has happened in the past? You are very familiar with the history of probes and investigations that have been launched into several killings in the past, and nothing came out of them. You look at the Zaria massacre of Shiites, there's a report on that, no action yet. Nobody has been held accountable. The same with the killing of IPOB protesters and so many other cases like that. Will Lagos be different?
I am cautiously optimistic that there will be accountability, but it all depends on what we think accountability means. There are different levels of accountability. You know, you've got, there are different, and that's because there are different kinds of courts, okay? You've got courts of law. Courts of law can be national, they can be local, they can be regional, they can be continental, they can be international. And you've also got courts of public opinion. And courts of public opinion actually are ultimately where everything is settled, you know, because these days people can read courts of law in different ways for their own purposes, particularly people who think they control temporal power. But it's much more difficult to read courts of public opinion. And the court of public opinion has been unrelenting on the question of the Lekki massacre, which is why, first of all, you had the governor of Lagos State deny it, then he had to admit it, and then he had to begin to dance atilogu over it, right? Then you had the armed forces deny it, then they admitted the army was there, then they said the army shot into the air, then they said the army shot at the people with blank bullets, then they said they would not attend the investigation, the commission of inquiry. Now they've said they will, and they're all doing these contortions over it. You had the federal government say that nothing happened, then they have admitted something may have happened, then they have said they will not investigate, now they have said they will investigate. They are doing their own calisthenics over it. Now you've had the cabinet of the federal government now said, the federal government that initially said nothing happened, the cabinet has now said something happened, and they are now asking the government to investigate. Now, all of that is reacting to the court of public opinion. And and this court of public opinion is not just national, it is international. It's not just civic, it is diplomatic. It is not just private, it is intergovernmental. All of that is adding up to incremental shifts and movements on the side of the government. But it's not just only that. It's also the fact that the International Criminal Court has now added this to the portfolio of cases that it has got to look at under the preliminary examination affecting Nigeria, and is putting it on the same pedestal as it has put the Boko Haram situation in Nigeria and also the Zaria massacre. So all of that suggests to me, whether or not it takes a day or a year or a decade, there'll be some reckoning. And part of that reckoning, I suspect, is going to come as we move to 2023, because people are not going to forget this very easily.
Right. Yeah. So there have been reports that the Nigerian media is going after young Nigerians who played prominent roles in organizing and promoting the NSAS protest. One of them is a young lady, Modupe Odele, a lawyer whose travel passport was confiscated by the Nigerian authorities. She was told that she is under investigation. Following the backlash on social media, the Nigerian Immigration Service reportedly told her today that her passport is now ready for pickup. I noticed Senator Shehu Sani tweeted on Tuesday, he said, witch hunting the prominent leaders of NSAS protesters on one hand and calling them for dialogue on the other is contradictory. But why is the Nigerian government going after citizens who have simply exercised their constitutional rights to protest? We just saw the report from People's Gazette that the CBN actually got a court order to freeze the accounts of 20 Nigerians who participated in that protest. What exactly is going on?
I can't tell you. I'm not part of the Nigerian government, but I can. The most I can say is that this is the MO of the Nigerian government. I don't think it's changed over generations. My own generation came of age during the annulment of the June 12 elections in 1993. And I remember at the beginning of July in 1993, when General Babangida called an emergency meeting of the Armed Forces Ruling Council over those annulments. General Abacha returned from that meeting and shot his way from the airport in Lagos to Flagstaff House in Ikoyi, in Lagos Island on the marina where he lived at the point. And that was the beginning of the wipeout of the resistance to the annulment. And in the aftermath of that, the same thing happened. Passports were seized, people were driven into exile, and that kind of thing. Don't forget, we essentially have the infrastructure of a military regime. It's not changed. The president himself is a soldier. And he's got a lot of soldiers around him, people who were weaned on the methods of authoritarianism and dictatorship. That's the only thing they know. And really, that's the MO, that is the spine, and that's the central nervous system of the Nigerian regime. And it's their default setting. When in trouble, go back to that. It's not just the passports of young people being seized for exercising perfectly lawful constitutional responsibilities and rights. It is also the accounts of both individuals and civic organizations being confiscated or frozen by the central bank. And when I saw that story, I was struck by the irony. Now, Mike Andaka, who was the lawyer that argued the case ex parte for the freezing of those accounts, was President Yar'Adua's Attorney General. That's PDP, right? Now, this is APC government going to PDP Attorney General. But it's not just that. Mike Andaka, after that, was stripped of his rank as Senior Advocate of Nigeria for ethical violations that I don't want to mention on this program because children may be watching. And the fact that we have to go to the gutter of the legal profession to dredge up that kind of person. I'm trying to keep my language suitable for the medium and for the nature of the conversation. The fact that we've got to dredge up these kinds of characters in order to perform this kind of plumbing work for the Nigerian regime tells you where we are and tells you the kind of thing that we're going through.
Just on the backdrop of that also, on Wednesday, we saw a lady identified as Princess Ajibola, who is said to be the convener of a group known as Center for African Liberation and Socio-Economic Rights, CALSA, attacking Amnesty International and threatening the organization and its known supporters in Nigeria with violence. They are essentially angry with Amnesty International for reporting the fact that Nigerian protesters were killed across the country. Let's take a look at that video, Professor, very quickly, and then we'll come back to talk about this.
Therefore, for Nigeria to rebuild, Amnesty International must be out of the way and out of the way for good. CALSA therefore gives Amnesty International a 7-day ultimatum to leave Nigeria. The NGO's failure to leave Nigeria will attract civil disobedience at its offices both in Abuja and Lagos on a scale that will make the campaign of looting and arson it facilitated appear like child's play. Amnesty International's offices and those of all its affiliated organizations and non-supporters in Nigeria will be set upon the same way that its agents destroyed critical assets in the country. Its staffers will be treated the same way that innocent policemen and our children lynched by mobs were treated. The countdown for the 7-day ultimatum begins now.
Is this really happening in Nigeria?
Yes. We have a violent government. You know that. Why are you asking me whether it's happening in Nigeria? But this has been the method. By the way, this is not the first time this woman is threatening Amnesty International. I believe this is the third time. And you've got to ask who pays her and who protects her. And when you listen to the way she speaks, you know that this is not going to be a cheap person to pay. This is not, she's not Almaji, right? She's gone to a lot of school and she's being paid a heck of a lot of money to do this. You've got to ask yourself who can afford this kind of a vile character. But as I said, she's a repeat offender and she's being protected by the highest levels of the Nigerian political and security sector. I'll not go beyond that. here, but that is self-evident.
And it's just amazing how the government is trying to deny the fact that people actually lost their lives in the Lekki massacre and people were killed. And there's a video that AFP posted last week on social media. Let's take a look at this video very quickly. It's actually the accounts of people who were shot in the Lekki protest and who survived. Let's take a look at that video very quickly.
I was very close to the stage, so before I realized I had a gunshot, people were just falling. So they weren't close to me. And when he was shot, I was about holding him. That was when I received my own on my neck. So when I screamed, that was when I had the one behind me. So I guess that's the ones I could remember that very moment because I passed out.
They didn't send a warning. They just started shooting at us immediately. Straight bullets at us. And we now sat on the ground singing national anthem, flagging the Nigeria flag, the national flag. That was when I got the shot here.
I was in the midst of the crowd that very day. There was someone that was shot beside me. So we were like trying to rescue that person. All of a sudden, I just felt something hit me. And when it hit me on my left thigh, it damaged my phone. It was my phone that saved me. It would have penetrated more than that. Maybe it would have come out at the other side.
I feel so bad. I feel bad because it was army that came with Nigeria Army uniform, Nigeria Army gun, and Nigeria Army vehicle. So how would they say it's not the army?
But for me, I'm not stopping. This is just the beginning of the protest. Because I need to fight a good fight for my kids to say it. Because I need a better Nigeria. Not this one, promise and feel. I'm not ready for it anymore.
Now, on that same Twitter thread where AFP posted this video, we saw from a Twitter user identified as Billionaire Son tweeting a video of when the shooting actually happened, what happened. And just to put this in proper perspective, because the denials from the Nigerian government is quite interesting. This is actually what happened. This is a video from that incident. Let's take a look at this very quickly. Very, very, very horrific images that we've seen from the shooting that happened in Lagos, and the idea that the government is asking people to go out and claim that nothing really happened it's unbelievable.
But young people are also obliging them. You know, you see that all the APC trolls, all the paid, all the 10,000 naira, 20,000 naira generals, obliging them on Nigerian Twitter, on Nigerian social media. That's also part of the story, because those people are also young people and behaving as if they don't have blood in their veins, and some of them even know the people who have been, some of the people who have been shot, and some of the people who have been killed, and some of the people injured are people who went to school with my children. And this is really where we've got to ask ourselves serious questions. Now, at least the army admits that their assets were at this place, at the
Right.
invitation of the Lagos state government. At least we know that much. Now you ask yourself the question, what do you send soldiers who are armed? And we've also seen testimonies that the soldiers arrived there and started shooting into the air. So they arrived uniformed and with guns, and they started shooting into the air. Now we've seen testimonies of people carrying injuries. Were
Right.
those people in the air as well? Were they projected from the ground into the air so that the bullets met them upstairs? Quite clearly not. Now, you do not send uniformed soldiers to go and police unarmed civilians with guns and with bullets, with live bullets, and expect that the soldiers will not use their guns. The entire story does not add up, does not make sense, except for the purpose of denying the self-evident. But you then ask yourself the question, who could have ordered or who could have authorized that kind of operation? It goes,
Right.
there is only one person who could have authorized it. It is not a brigade commander. It's not a battalion commander. It is not a divisional commander. And the chief of army staff by himself will not authorize it. There is only one person who could have authorized that kind of operation. And that is the context that will frame it. And by the way, it is not the kind of thing that a state governor can authorize, because
Right.
the state governor obviously
Does not have
has
the
no
powers
authority
over the army.
the Nigerian armed forces. There is only one person who could have given the nod to this thing. You ask yourself the question, who could that be?
Still speaking about the army, one story that made headlines this week is the alleged killings of Igbos in Oyigbo in Nigeria's southern Rivers State. According to a report by The Sun yesterday, shortly after the NSAS protests, some unarmed youths of Oyigbo community were massacred by Nigerian soldiers in the pretext of trying to check activities of the Indigenous Peoples of Biafra, IPOB, a group now proscribed by the Nigerian government. The military operation, which was aimed at recovering arms, said to be carted away by the secessionist group or other elements, resulted in the loss of lives of innocent youths, men, women, and even children who were not protesting. Yesterday, the Nigerian Bar Association set up a fact-finding team to investigate what has happened. Are you optimistic that anything concrete is going to come out of this?
Let us watch and see. Obibo in River State is at the border with Abia State, and historically there's been this tension, identity tension in River State going back quite some while now, over identities or competing identities. And the Ikwere people say they are not Igbos, and around that there have been mutual antipathies built. Now, the broad strokes of the story are that as the NSAS situation degenerated, incidents began. There was an outbreak of incidents between some elements in the Igbo community and elements in the Hausa community in Obibo, which led to mutual loss of lives between the communities. And then subsequently, according to at least one set of narratives, an attack on some uniformed assets, which led to the loss of lives among some police officers, reportedly about 6. I may I don't know the numbers yet.
Yeah, the BBC reported that it were about 6, yes.
But about 6, the numbers I've got, and reportedly also probably about 2 said to be soldiers of the Nigerian army or uniformed assets of the Nigerian army. Subsequently, the state governor then went to Obibo. Somebody, I believe, was killed or more when he was leaving. But the report is that the person was probably killed by the uniformed assets that followed him. What then happened was a blockade on the community. And the community was blockaded by uniformed assets of the Nigerian state, who then reportedly went house to house over a period of about 8 to 9 days, looking for young people, and young people were equated with IPOB. So I think it's important to draw the distinction between, whether or not being a member of IPOB, I don't know why it is a crime, but let's assume it is. How you prove that someone is a member of IPOB and why being a member of IPOB then becomes
a death sentence
for summary execution. Not even a death sentence, because a death sentence requires you to put the person through a judicial process
right.
of proof. But summary execution by a uniformed asset of the Nigerian state without anything, I don't know. But what I do understand is that quite a good number of people were reported killed.
Right.
The markets were destroyed. Food stocks were destroyed. Quite a good number of women reportedly assaulted sexually. The communities could not mobilize for help. There was no light, no water, no food. And so over basically about 9-10 days, the entire community was razed and dehumanized. How that becomes a way to make any point, only the people who orchestrated it can say. But clearly, some atrocities seem to have gone on in Obigbo. Obviously, nobody should condone the killing of uniformed assets by anybody. But there must be civilized mechanisms for ensuring accountability for that, and that's not what has happened here. Again, this is the settled method of the Nigerian state: reprisals on individuals and communities who, for the most part, are entirely unrelated to whoever the perpetrators of these things may have been. One more thing. Those who condemn the people they call IPOB now in Obigbo are exactly the same politicians who rent these boys for political purposes. The same boys that they are now basically looking to exterminate are the boys that they used to get to power. And this is the problem. Whether you're looking at the origins of Boko Haram, or you are looking at the origins of the people that are now looking to exterminate in Obigbo, the methods of the Nigerian politician are the same. They use these young people for the things that they want to do to get to power, and then they turn on them, and then they seek to exterminate them. There is nothing that's changed.
Let's take a break from Nigeria and go to the international scene. The United States has just conducted a very critical election. Incumbent President Donald Trump has many fans in Nigeria, just as he has a lot of Nigerians who will be very happy to see him lose this election. In the broader sense of all of this, why should Nigerians really care? Why is this election important to Nigeria?
There is a facetious dimension to that, and there is a serious dimension to that. The facetious dimension, I guess, is Nigeria is a country of multiple fundamentalisms. There are lots of Nigerians who are, I believe probably a majority of Nigerians are invested in the fundamentalists of Pentecostals in the United States. The fundamentalisms of abortion, on fundamentalism on abortion, on the right of the woman, on basically the agencies of the woman, and fundamentalisms about faith in different dimensions, and fundamentalisms of homophobia. All right, and so for those Nigerians who probably represent a bit of a majority of the country, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Trump is a great, terrific thing, and I think Nigeria is one of the few countries where Mr. Trump, outside the United States, where Mr. Trump enjoyed approval ratings well in excess of 50%. Throughout the period from his political emergence until where we are now. So that for me is the fascist. If Mr. Trump had run in Nigeria, in any of the 120,000 polling units in Nigeria, he would probably have won very handily. Whoever he ran against, including perhaps Mr. Buhari. So that's one. Now, but there is a serious dimension to it, which is that the United States is actually the anchor country of global governance, global security, global diplomacy, and global trade. And indeed, the dollar is an anchor currency for global commerce. So that whether you like it or not, the world is interested in the outcome of the US elections, because where the United States kind of goes in terms of its moral and global geostrategic outlook, the world more or less is the world is clearly affected and certainly gravitates towards. So that, I think, is the reason why Nigerians have to be interested in the outcome of the US elections. It's not just Nigerians, it's everybody in the world. I mean, Nigerians, we have all been glued trying to crunch, follow the analytics and the statistics as they have evolved over the last 3-4 days. That's just the way it is.
Let's come back to Nigeria and talk about social media censorship. Nigeria's Northern State Governors Forum, in a meeting on Monday, called for the regulation of social media in Nigeria. Where is Nigeria heading with all of this?
And the National Bureau of Statistics today said that Northern Nigeria has about 80% child mortality rate, right?
Right.
Correct. So you ask yourself the question, what should be the priority for the governors of Northern Nigeria? Addressing child mortality, almajiri, access to education, vesicovaginal fistula, and all the rest of that, or are preaching and advocating for censorship, which is the word they used, of social media? That's up to you to decide. And by the way, I really don't even think that the worst part of their statement was paragraph 3 or paragraph 4, that's on social media or on NSARS. I think the most terrible thing in that statement was paragraph 12. I don't know whether you read it, but paragraph 12 was the place where they congratulated the traditional rulers of Northern Nigeria for investing in using sentimental, to use their expression, sentimental instruments like ethnicity and religion to preclude NSARS from coming into Northern Nigeria. Now, these are the people who give us preachments about bigotry, talking about how they plant the virus of ethnicity, of negative ethnicity and ethnocentrism and negative sectarian considerations for vain political purposes. And tomorrow, there will be the people who will call you a bigot because you say the truth to power. For me, this says all there is to say about many of those people. But, you know, we've not heard the last of this, and I think that this story is going to run a while yet, and it deserves to.
Professor, many Nigerian youths particularly live in a country where they feel like they are powerless and that they cannot do anything to stop the government from going ahead with any plans they have, whether it's to censor the social media, shut down their voices. Just today in Abuja, police fired at protesters who again came out to say end police brutality and all of that. We saw the videos on social media. Are Nigerian youths really powerless?
No. I think, this is an evolution, and there's a limit to how far these people are going to be able to keep everybody down. You can fool some people sometime, you can't fool all the people all the time. And Nigeria on this trajectory is not sustainable. The British Council report that you cited at the top of the program is perfectly right. Nigeria's only hope is to respect the agency of its young people. Now, we're not going to be doing that, going the way we are going and thinking things are going to continue. And these young people are going to allow this. You've seen what happens when that envelope is pushed too far. Boko Haram, by the way, was a youth movement. Mohammed Yusuf was in his 20s. Let's not forget that. All right? And it has become a very resilient negative youth movement. Now, that's one. The militia movement in the Niger Delta is a youth movement. Again, negative, but, whether it's Egbesu or Chikoko movement or MEND, these are young people,
Right.
Okay? Now, what we are going to end up with, if the government does not respect civic youth movements, is these negativities. and we are going to drive young people who wish the country well into violence. And you cannot have so many frontiers of violence in one country, because the country would tear itself apart. So it is in the interest, really, of the politicians who are ruling the country to find a way of reaching accommodation with the young people who are only asking for one thing: a right to live. That's all they're asking for. That's not too much. That's what government exists for under our Constitution, Section 14.3. The right to live. And under Section 17.2c, that government should be humane. They're not asking for too much. And it seems to me it's something that government can easily grant and take credit for. But they are unwilling to do so, because by doing so, they will cede power to a new generation. And if I may add this, we are talking about a country in which Mike Enahure emerged into national consciousness at the age of 21.
Right.
Victor Ndoma has been in government since he was 25, 26. General Gowon became head of state at 32. By 36, Murtala Mohammed had emerged as a leader in the country. He was killed at 39. By 41, President Buhari had become head of state. By 44, what's his name? Ibrahim Babangida had become head of state. By the way, the Sadaona, Ahmadu Bello, that is, Tafawa Balewa, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Awolowo were all emerged as national leaders in their 30s. So we have a long tradition here of Pius Anyim became Senate president at 39. Somebody like Donald Duke became governor at 36. So we have a long tradition of producing leaders in their youth. Why don't they want to see this generation also come to life in its youth?
A very important question, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, and I guess that's where we'll close the conversation tonight. Thank you so much for joining me, and to all our viewers who watch, thanks so much for joining us again tonight on The Fix with Ohimai Amaize. Just before we close, I'd like you to enjoy this beautiful song that was put together by a young Nigerian artist. It is very timely, and it's about police brutality. It's by an artist called ODJ. ODJ is his name, and he's put this song together. Enjoy it as we close the show. Thanks again, Professor, for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much, my brother. Keep well.
All right.
I realize.
I'm a Nigerian, fully breathing. My music be my occupation. Yeah. I know they carry a gun, but when I go out, I don't know if I could return. I don't know if I could return, Police corner me, sass, they can't touch me. They carry big matter, they put for my head. They carry AK, they put for my neck. No, they snap me photo, like say I follow Tiff Tito. Now who go help me explain? She not because I carry fine motor. I don't want again. I don't want this nonsense to happen again. You gunned down my brother, you say na mistake. You raping my sister, you say na country. No. I don't want again. I don't want officer to shoot me again. I don't want disaster to shoot me again. Oga Presido and police brutality.
Na blow, I no kill a person. Na fresh, no they point me gun. Oh God, they Jackie Soros okay. Black killing black, that's the kiss. Give people with the teeth we celebrate. Inside suffer we jubilate. Education we carry last. Corruption we first for class. We all we have my brother man. We all we get my brother man. No. Education we carry last. Corruption we first for class. Make we fix and make we no crash. Make we fix and make we no crash.
I don't want again. I don't want this nonsense to happen again. You gunned down my brother, you say na mistake. You raping my sister, you say na country. No. I don't want again. I don't want officer to shoot me again. I don't want disaster to shoot me again. Oga Presido and police brutality.